Testing your Plone codebase with Pytest.
Thank you. Let me just clear some things up. I will do my best not to be over time. I will talk less, especially because no voice. But more important, I want to show you some code, and we are going to sprint on that tomorrow. First thing is, I'm stealing from a colleague, so it's fine. Plone loves tests. David Glick did the archaeology last year, and he was able to come out that the first test that was committed to Plone code base dated back from 2002, October 7th, and it was done by a Brazilian, Sidney da Silva. From there to here, we saw lots of things. We started with unit test, and at some point, our code base, for some reason, was using unit test 2. Then I found back in 2014, Gil Forcada removing unit test 2 for some reason as well. We use Robot Framework, Selenium. We had Travis CI for a bunch of things. We had a bunch of external tools to help us. And we had this motto of untested code is broken code, right? And to be true, I've seen many, many times that even tested code could be broken, but for sure, if it's not tested, it's going to break sometime and you have no idea. I'm seeing core developers in here, people that know more about testing than I do, but while I was in another life writing code for some German companies, one of the things that really, really pissed me was every time we had something we would fix, we are in a hurry, we commit a fix, push, and then guess what happens? Something else breaks. Or there's a regression, because fast, be fast, break things, and that happens a lot. So testing is important. Everyone knows this in the Plone community. Actually, you taught me that. Also, testing Plone is the thing that makes Gil Forcada really happy. And those who know him, you know that when that happens, the world is better. Sun is on the sky is blue, and so on and so forth. But let's be honest, we have 20 years of testing. It's test on top of test, and I bet some of you already went to down that path that you look at a test, you have no idea why is it there, why are we testing for this? But as Plone had more smart people than I am, probably is testing something that I'm not seeing. If I remove this test, something else breaks in a few months, and then it's my fault, so we leave it there. And sometimes we avoid even refactoring some old tests to be more efficient and so on because of that. Of course, there are exceptions to the rules. I saw people going in the test base and cleaning some things, but still. And to make things worse, we have hundreds of packages. We are now testing many things for 5.2 and 6. I don't think we still have, but 5.2 runs on or supported to 7, meaning we need to test to 7, and then 3.7, and then 3.8, and then 3.9, and then 3.10, 3.11, 3.12. And over time, we start piling up new external tools, GitHub Actions, Jenkins, Precommit.io, Mr. Roboto, Travis CI. I believe some of you even missed Travis CI. And now we have Plone Meta, meaning every time, instead of getting rid of everything, and by the way, I quoted that a few times already this week, there was this guy in the Plone community called Miko Atama, and he used to be the person that would come on stage, say the real truth. People in the community that are working a lot would get really angry with him, like, you're not valuing what we're doing. But I remember one specific thing is, we have one way of doing team. Yeah, that's old. Now we move, we have the second way that's going to be the main way. Oh, we have a new idea. Now we have 3 ways of doing team. And the other 2 stay there forever. I believe we got rid of DTML, could be like yesterday or 10 years ago, but still we have the ASO, we have people customizing stuff on view customization. Now we have Voto, and it keeps piling up, right? Mostly because we have a large code base, we have legacy code, history, and we try as much as we can to avoid breaking someone else's code. Sometimes it happens. When it happens, someone is really sad, but that's why we keep testing. And then there's this thing called Pytest. Who in here heard of Pytest before? Let me see. Who in here use Pytest? Good. Who in here use Pytest because went to another Python team and that was the way they were doing things there? Okay, so it's kind of similar pattern that I have. Ich liebe Pytest. When I was working in Berlin and some startups, I started writing code with modern Python. The time we had Philip Bauer fighting windmills to get us to the promised Python 3 land, I was writing code that was only Python 3 and fully typed. Yeah, I know, bad idea. And trying my best to keep up with the rest of the Python community. Then I bumped into Pytest because at some point, who did not try to use nose or nose 2, stuff like that? Steve Pierce is not here, I think, but when I was helping in the Pyramid community, we used nose or nose 2, and thank God that's gone, or I hope so. But then Pytest became the thing because it's Pythonic, even though people say, yeah, what is Pythonic? It's whatever unit test is not. Because in unit test, you need to know to code Python, and you need to know the special magical assert types. And from time to time, you're writing your test, you have no idea if it's assert equal or equals, both of them, self.assert equals, both of them work. One of them is going to throw a warning, but no one reads warnings anymore because there's so many these days, meaning it's a mess. On the other hand, in Pytest, you basically say assert something equal or is or not is something. It works with dependency injection. That's a concept that we should be using more at some point in the future. And honestly, the best benefit is the fact that they have a huge, really huge ecosystem of plugins. You think, oh, I want to test against Elasticsearch. I have no idea how to start. There's a plugin to do that. Something that already starts, that is going to start a Elasticsearch instance via Docker or something. And by the way, Nathan McGinn is not here, but a long time ago, I was working, I need to test some Elasticsearch and other stuff, and I bumped into a repo that he was maintaining at the time that had a collection of external services like Postgres and Elasticsearch and so on. What you need to do is basically, okay, I want to use Postgres, and by magic, things would happen for you, and then you write your test, you focus on your tests. And Pytest also supports unit tests, so you can still just move your tests from place A to place B, and they still work. And this is a comparison, and of course, I'm kind of not being completely honest in here, because one of them still had things to check for, if we do not have the get installer and blah, blah, blah. But even so, that's the difference of code you have in one, code you have in unit test, code you have in with Pytest. And there's ways to get this even more productive. Because one of the use cases you have is, okay, I want to test the same thing with different values. Let me see, imagine my fixture or my piece of code was supposed to create 50 content items. In the old Plone slash Zoptest runner slash unit test way, that would be 50 methods like def test, blah, blah, if, and they're basically doing the same thing. In unit tests, there are two ways of making that a little bit sane. One is using subtests and the other subtests, and the other is using additional Python package called parameterized. That is the flow in Pytest. And now Plone loves Pytest. I kept asking people to help me to get a working example of testing something with Plone with Pytest. So David Glick last year said that, oh, this should be achievable. I do not believe, I do not remember actually if we implemented just after the sprints during the Plone conference or, yeah. It was really something like, okay, let's test this, easy, right? And on top of that, we decided to create a wrapper around the GoSept Pytest layer. That's the thing that kind of converts everything we have in terms of Zoptest layers to the Pytest world of fixtures. And this plugin, it provides fixtures and some helpers that are also fixtures, but things like, okay, get me the installer. I really don't want to know where it is, which version it is, get me the installer, or check if a product is already, add-on is already installed, or if a vocabulary is there, get me the vocabulary and so on. Because in the end, you are not testing the inner, at least you should not be testing the inners of how Plone gets one specific vocabulary. You want to know the vocabulary is there, the values are there. If you change the language, the titles are going to change. And since a while, if you create a new cookie cutter Plone starter project, it comes with two small tests. That's the default implementation. You can see that it has like a large adoption right now. It's growing. It's new distributions, things like Plone distribution, PloneGov, br.portalbase, and Kit Concept, VotalITeam, and Collective.Plone Intranet. New add-ons, Collective Mastodon, Collective Blue Sky. Kit Concept Solar, actually it's an interesting story because we had already a large code base of tests. We ported that to Pytest. I was not able to, in a quickly manner, find a diff of how many lines were moved, but it's way, way simpler with Solar. Content rules lag and other things, and pass plugins member properties to group. They are all good examples of what you can do. But as I said, I wanted to talk less, show more code, so I'm going to show a new cookie cutter project that's the simple example of how you do it. The PloneGov BR Portal Edu that basically shows how you implement a test for a distribution. Collective Mastodon that has to mock some stuff to avoid running the test over and over and over again. And Kit Concept Solar. So let's go show the code in here. PloneConf 2023, that was the code that we used during the trainings. So backend code, in here I have some default configuration on pyproject.toml, just showing if someone run Pytest in here, I want you to run with code coverage in that folder, but the logic is actually here. this is what goes in the extra requirements of the Python package. I could get this removed. It's not that important because Pytest requires that. I'm not sure if we fix that in Plone Meta. And then we have all the tests are on this folder here called tests. But I want to show first that we still have the testing.py to maintain some familiarity for people that are coming from unit test. It's exactly the same thing. I just simplified the names to avoid those large names we have and that always broke the black plus I sort. So I wanted to avoid that. But this is basically what we have in any Plone package installation. We do not have the test folder here. And then we go up here, and then we have tests. First thing is, there's a top-level file called conftest. That's where you say, okay, I'm adding something, a large fixture called integration. And on top of that, you could add the acceptance or the functional. In here, we have only integration tests, so no need to register anything else. Come in here in setup, you have, okay, let's test if this package is installed. I already import in here the package name from the package itself, just to make it easier. I create a class, and I start adding my tests. In the first one is, let's test if the add-on is installed. We have self and we have installer in here. Where does installer comes from? Any idea? Who's going to tell me that? I have Alexander here for $1 million. Go.
In the conf test, it's a fixture.
We come in conf test, there's no fixture here. There's integration. But that's the point. I know someone wants $1 million, but I'm going to stop. I kind of agreed with him. He would ask, and I would say, ooh, sorry. Actually, we are using Pytest Plone, and Pytest Plone brings you these fixtures. So in there, there's something called installer register that uses already the integration. It gets you already the portal and so on. It knows where you are. And then in here, I just do installer, is product installed, is true. To test browser layer, I have something called browser layers. It's another fixture. So test if this is in this. And to get the latest version, profile latest version, and the profile name and the version. There's some discussion about this being the most useless test ever, right? But honestly, every 2 or 3 releases of Plone Voto, we create the upgrade step and we forget to change the metadata.xml, and guess what happens? Oh, Plone Voto is upgradable, and then you go there, it's not. And then what the hell is happening? This is the kind of stuff you do. It's boring, but again, it's supposed to break something at some point. Tests are meant for that. And same thing goes for the uninstallation. I get already the same thing in here, but I'm doing some trickery. I get the default fixture gets me a portal that's already installed. What I'm doing here is for everything that's in this class, I'm creating something, an internal fixture that basically runs before all the other ones, and uninstall the package. So in here it comes, installer, uninstall product, and then we do the checks. That's the easiest possible scenario to test stuff. But then I said, let's go one step. To test the distribution, same thing, same dependencies, there's nothing else in there. But for test, I have what? I have a conf test in here, also using the same Pytest plugin. This time I have functional and integration testing. One thing I have in here, it's something that returns me a list of data that's going to be used to create content types for some tests, not all of them. This basically creates all the content type items on Plone, returns one, same thing for the other content type, so on and so forth, and they are here. Then I test a control panel here. So import Pytest, put in here the config.let ID. In the fixture, I get the portal. This is one of the fixtures we have by default in the Pytest Plone. And then portal control panels. I filter to already pick the control panel I want. We could have a fixture to do that as well, but it's in here. And then test the control panel exists. Test it's visible. And this is what I said about parameterization. How many tests I'm running here? 3? Yep. So if I just had this, if I was running only this test class, I will be running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tests. And I do that with not much code. I keep reusing stuff. And honestly, this is one of the things I like the most. People that worked with me last year saw that every package I created or touched, at some point I installed parameterize as a dependency to do this kind of stuff with unit test. Because this helps you do stuff. Oh, test a bunch of key value, see if they're there, or see if they're set or uninstalled, and so on and so forth. We have something that tests the creation, but this one, it's quite interesting because I'm using in here, one thing we do with in Plone distribution. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on. Later on, meaning tomorrow, to whoever comes to the training, is in Plone distribution, we have the ability to, alongside the default Plone site, create additional ones. That's really useful when your package has more than one distribution. So you kind of have the sites pre-created and cached, and then you just select the one you want. And I have in here something called a fixture that gets the request, the HTTP request, and allow and give to me. So in here, what I'm doing here? First, I'm getting an object called creating a fixture called portal, setting it, and then I start with my tests that are first. Let's test the title, the description, test if it's excluded from nav, and then go for the dependencies, see if everything is installed. And this is really useful for those of you that are creating a distribution or a policy package. Both cases, you're only getting things and installing, configuring, make sure they are there or they are not visible. So this is how it is done. So it's a bunch of tests in here. Same thing goes for check if the content is created or not. This is useful for, I created a distribution is going to create the full content, it comes in here. And test the, in here it's testing more thing is, in this path there's something with the title this is the portal type, and this is the review state. I could be doing that in many tests just to impress everyone. Oh my God, that's so cool, but useless. Testing stuff in here, and same thing goes test portal if it's global allow, because we provide something that's the get FTI. So get FTI, see if it's allowed or not, and then test if they are in navigation or not, right? Test if the distribution was registered, if it's available or not. And then in here, I have the example of how to do it. And I'm testing the inners of distribution registration, test vocabularies, and so on, okay? Moving on to collective Mastodon. I have in here, in this case, you know what Mastodon is, right? Who in here has an account on Mastodon? Who's following me? Thank you. Those 2 persons that are not following, come on, right? We need likes and clicks and so on, because that's what makes life good and blah, blah, blah. Jokes aside, one of the benefits of Mastodon is the fact that you can run your own instance. And in this package, I also have in here the Docker Compose to install a new Mastodon instance. Why? Because the first time I run my test, or when I'm running my test to test something new, I bring the instance up, I come in here in the test directory, and let me see, for instance, for actions, I delete these files because I'm using a plugin for Pytest called VCR. For the old folks, you know what I mean. For the new folks, is like, what's the reference? They have no idea. We are recording everything that's going out, all requests that are going. The next time you run, nothing changed, it keeps in here. And when I run the tests, like this is the payload I'm going to send to my content rules action, get the action here, create a dummy event, and then I start. I'm running, it seems in here, I'm running most of the stuff with this image. I'm testing content rule, adding the view, testing is registering, testing the summary, testing the add view. This is something that Martin was complaining that's lacking on Voto, that you go to the content rules, you do not have the list of the string interpolation you can use, but that exists on Classic UI. So, I can use title and so on. And then test the DIT, and in here, payload interpolation. Status is going to be this, spoiler text is going to be this. Just to show the original, it's in here. Status, hello world, give me the tags, absolute URL, spoiler text, the title. So actually I'm testing everything, every attribute from the content rule that I'm changing. I can test string interpolation and so on. Testing language, because that's important in Mastodon, and you keep doing. And in here, if I call, when I run this, if there's nothing already in here, it's going to match on the path, on the remote path to generate the cassette, and same thing here, calling the same piece of code. In here, I test the internal implementation of the content, the way I store the information regarding the Mastodon instance. In here, I test interpolator, right? Because I implemented one called tag that get every subject you have, or every keyword you have in the subject folder, subject field, and gets, if someone already added with hashtag, it keeps, without hashtag, does that, lowercase, if there's a space, and you keep going and going and just Or if you're a crypto bro and you want to put dollar signs everywhere, I remove that because that's not cool, and create the hash, and so on. So you keep the conf test in here also set some environmental variables and plays with it. And configuration for VCR, the content that's being created. This is something I want to add to the default Pytest Plone, that if you create a local fixture called contents and return a list of things kind of in this format, I'm going to create that for you on site creation, allowing you to, okay, this is already there. And the last one I want to show is Kit Concept Solar. Test in here, let me see, conf test, simple. And there's something in services here. Also, in here we have also to create users. This is another fixture I want to add back into Pytest. So users, the contents, helper fixture to help extract information. I do not remember everything we did in here, so another fixture. This one is just to test something, how it creates content. Check if the Solar server is up. And in here we are using a specific Pytest plugin called Pytest Docker Compose or Pytest Docker. They provide you with something you basically can override. In this case, get me the Docker Compose file from this position. And you can later run something like, okay, Solar service requires Docker IP. That's something these other fixtures provide to you. And Docker service. This is the port. This is URL. Wait until it's responsive. It basically waits, go up. It's listening to it. See, this is the function we wrote in here. And then I can simply wait, use the Solar instance. And every time we create a new portal, I want Solar to be available. Right? You see that I'm calling in here, but I'm not even using anywhere else in the code. But that's one of the magic stuff that Pytest does. It does the dependency injection. It basically, okay, I require this, life goes on. And then portal with content, if it's in maintenance, what do you do? In this case, you can simply reset Solar every time, and you keep going. Important point, everything in here is available on GitHub. There's no secret code. The secret code with Pytest, no, maybe my personal website has, but everything else that was written is available. And of course, let's move from unit test to Pytest. It's faster, has a better ecosystem. We can simplify the way, for instance, I want to test collective.solar. I need to run build out. Oh, I want something else, not build out. Then we have to write our own magic stuff to create the Solar instance for tests, make sure it's up, and so on. With unit test, with Pytest is like I showed. And of course, let's use Pytest only for add-ons? No, we should be using also for the core. But the point is, should we be using for all the core, all the hundreds of thousands of tests? Yes. Are we going to do that? No. Why? Because after 20 years, one thing I learned about the Plone community is working. We do not touch in that. If it works for me, even better. So the whole idea is new things. We move to Pytest. We start improving this. We start providing these fixtures to other people so they can test their own code base. Because Untested code is broken code. And the second thing is, here's some nice penguins saying hi from the end of the world. And I'm going to announce the end of the world sprint that's going to happen when Franco Pellegrini, that's watching us, organizes it sometime next year. Okay, so ping Franco on GitHub and on Twitter. He's in charge of organizing this. So thank you all for coming. I really look forward for some of you to join us on this sprint so I can share this and I can answer any questions you may have. Okay, oh my God, German question. You knew that. I knew.
I can maybe start with a comment and not a question. I was, or maybe a question. I was wondering, we moved from like all tests, the core test from all tests to being able to just run bin test to run all the tests. If we would start moving core packages to Pytest, I guess that won't be possible any longer, right? We would end up with two different.
Actually, then we make a wrapper that runs both of them. Because it's doable, it's possible, and I think it's desirable that we start moving step by step and adding new packages only. And there will be cases that you look that Pytest is a better solution. I believe Gil said something about, oh, we could easily move everything from Zope Test Runner to Pytest, just moving the folder and so on and so forth. But even so, we are going to have large commits. And Pytest Plone, even though we are using, one thing I noticed for Kit Concept Solar, it runs fast on my computer. For a computer, in an old computer, for some reason, was slow. And I was not able to debug why. If it was because it was taking too long to start the Docker Compose or start and shut down, something we could optimize, or if it was something else.
Did you ever try out this Pytest plugin that allows you to run things in parallel?
Not in any package in here, but in another life, yes. And there's a Pytest plugin that I believe Nate Zupan introduced me, is one that you basically randomize the order tests are running.
Yep.
And that's perfect because I've seen tests that only run in a sequential order. If you change, it breaks, meaning they are not well isolated. Or actually, someone did that because that was the only way to make the test pass.
Any other question?
I bugged Franco on Discord, and he says that he will be organizing the sprint if you help him.
Yes, of course. My son was the one that recorded that. We have more than this. We can share at some point. Penguins are awesome because you think they are lovely and stuff like that, but when they come out of the water, they jump and start walking like majestic, right? Until some of them miss the landing, and then boom, and then everybody, what? And then, okay, nothing happened. Really, it's a really cool trip. I know it's going to be hard for most of you to go to Ushuaia, but then you're going to know what the type of effort Franco does every time he comes in here. It's kind of flight connection, other flight, other connection, and then, oh, it's just a train ride, then the train ride, and then it's Deutsche Bahn, then it's late, and then, yeah, this is the kind of stuff we suffer to come here, so it would be lovely to have you. Okay? Oh, another question. Yeah, because I said Deutsche Bahn.
Right, no disagreement on that, they suck. I noticed that you put all the tests in one folder like we do in Plone, and I'm not sure what the current best practice in Pytest is, but lots of projects, I think Django, they put the test right next to the original file. Could you elaborate why you made that decision?
So, long story short, this is the kind of the common pattern. Is I seen people doing differently. When I left the Plone world to go work with other stuff, I had the habit of creating a test folder inside a part of the code that I wanted to test, and honestly, I liked that because it was easier. But then everybody else is just putting everything together. One of the advantages of this is conf test inheritance. You set the top one, and then you go and selectively override parts of it, and then we could have something like, this is for functional testing, creating or deleting something, and then this is for integration, and so on and so forth. Dylan J, on the other.
I missed the first part, so I don't know if you mentioned this, and everyone's going to hate me for saying this, but Pytest will run doc tests.
Will?
Yep, I've done it many times.
Ooh, that's good. I never tried because there is a little bit of prejudice against doc tests outside, with the new folks. They're kind of, but that would be lovely to test. Man, I have no idea. It's not invented here, or it was invented by people that use Zope, so younger generations, they basically say no. And then it takes 5-6 years, they come with something called protocol to solve the problem of typing, and then I ask honestly, Zope interface? No, it's way different. Zope interface? It seems Alexander raised his hand.
Doc test is good if you do have actual code within your documentation and you want to ensure that this code actually runs and runs correctly. But please don't test your functionality with doc test.
Plone API, anyone? See, I have a pull request that stopped because I cannot write the narrative documentation because it has the hidden inner blocks inside. So I have two blockers. The first one is I need to write a narrative documentation in English, and I need to hide some stuff in the middle of the text. So I would love some volunteers to help me with that. That's it. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Thank you all.